McGraw-Hill Professional presents The Disney Way, 3rd edition, Harnessing the Management Secrets of Disney in Your Company. Written by Bill Capodagli and Lynn Jackson. Narrated by Gary Regal. Forward. I can still remember the feeling of excitement that came over me every Sunday evening. The great anticipation of getting my grilled cheese sandwich and tomato soup on a TV tray and awaiting the start of my favorite show. Then, on the screen it would appear. The beautiful castle, and Tinker Bell would wave her wand, and the pixie dust would drop, and the wonderful world of Disney would begin. Wow! All those feelings come back as if it were just last night. For me, that was over 50 years ago, but that feeling still excites me every time I have a Disney experience. What is the magic? Part of me wants to know, while the other part of me just wants to keep on experiencing it, like wanting and not wanting to know how a magic trick is performed. Bill and Lynn have cracked open the curtain so we can all have access to some of the insights into the wonderful world of Disney. It was the Disney standard of imagination and engagement that inspired me so many years ago, and with that pixie dust in my heart, I discovered the fish philosophy, a group of daily practices that reflect the ideals Walt Disney shared with the world. Now, Bill and Lynn bring these ideals and practices into practical use, with something for any dreamer to use. We have all heard of the Disney secrets. Customers are called guests, theme parks are called the shows, and behind the scenes is called the backstage. But the real magic that Bill and Lynn share with us is Walt's underlying philosophy of I dream, I test my dreams against my beliefs, I dare to take risks, and I execute my vision to make those dreams come true. Dream, believe, dare, do. The Walt Disney Company has seen many changes over the years, and it is going through change now. But what keeps on guiding this great big dream is Walt's values and beliefs. Few people have had the chance to see the true magic behind the curtain, but learning about these guiding principles, as readers will do with this book, opens the magic for so many of us. In this book, Bill and Lynn reveal how the dream, believe, dare, do principles are lived in organizations of all types, from startups to nonprofits to healthcare facilities. Among these exciting organizations are Tyra Beauty, Ottawa County, Michigan, and Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital. Walt gave the world so many gifts: the gift of dreaming big, believing in your dreams, daring to take risks, and doing it, executing it. And you can share in those dreams too. Make your dreams come true. John Christensen, Playground Director, co-author of Fish, Charthouse Learning, home of the Fish Philosophy. Preface to the 3rd edition. The late legendary management consultant Peter Drucker once said, "When you see a successful business, someone once made a courageous decision. Those who have prospered despite a pathway of obstacles have done so with an inner compass that steers their course, deeply held values that have crystallized and led them to achieve tangible results." Walt Disney, the great storyteller and innovator, had such a compass that defined his enviable empire. His 4 steps were simple. Dream beyond the boundaries of today, believe in sound values, dare to make a difference, and then just go out and do it. Dream, believe, dare, do. For over 2 decades, Capodagli Jackson Consulting has inspired and led thousands of leaders, employees, and conference attendees to embrace these 4 principles, the success formula that worked for Walt. The Disney Way was named as a best business book and deemed so useful you may whistle while you work by Fortune magazine. The Disney Way is still a popular choice among readers, evidenced by the Los Angeles Times in the quote, "There is still magic in Disney's words." In the 2007 edition of this book, Capodagli and Jackson shared a collection of unique stories of triumph. Most of these organizations, from the Cheesecake Factory to Ernst & Young, had both global reputations and stellar achievements. In this edition, the authors feature organizations that are predominantly in startup mode or have revamped their strategies to become more customer-centric. The lineup includes 6 entities that have recently launched their businesses or have reinvented their cultures: Tyra Beauty, Z Taylors, Science Center of Iowa, Joe C. Davis YMCA Outdoor Center / Camp Widgewagon, the Grand Lake Center of Grand County, Colorado, and McLean County, Illinois, Unit, School District Number 5. There are also 3 well-established organizations that are striving to continuously improve: ACTS Retirement Life Communities, University Hospital's Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital, and California State University Channel Islands. 2 additional organizations, Flanagan's Bulk Mail Service and the Village Toy Center, demonstrate how the dream, believe, dare, do principles apply in a small community business. And finally, how Ottawa County, Michigan, one of the most progressive state administrative divisions in the United States, has used each element of the Disney Way as a starting point to create an amazing culture over a period of 3 years. At the end of chapters 2 through 12 are riveting examples of how one of the featured organizations has put into action the lessons of the chapter. Chapters 12, 13, and 14 are brand new chapters that showcase the following. Chapter 12, Love, the Real Pixie Dust, which explains the importance of love for employees, customers, products, and yourself. Chapter 13, Ottawa County, Michigan, Disney's Success Credo Transforms County Government, is the detailed account of the county's phenomenally successful customer-centric journey. And Chapter 14, Producing a Customer-Centric Culture and Implementation Strategy, is a roadmap for implementing the dream, believe, dare, do principles in any organization. Throughout the book, you will also find questions to ask and actions to take chalkboards. These will provide you with ideas for living the dream, believe, dare, do principles and sustain outstanding rewards in doing so. At the end of each chapter, an internet link to Chapter Chats with Bill is provided, in which co-author Bill Capodagli discusses additional insights regarding the content. This book tells the story of how passion for employees, customers, and products has translated into immeasurable success for Walt Disney and other great leaders, past and present. Their stories come to life through examples of real drive, courage, humanity, and a compelling thirst to make a difference within their own organizations. These leaders possess a charismatic quality that naturally inspires others to challenge themselves. In the same vein, they rely on the power of everyone on the entire team to journey together and unlock the future possibilities that they believe are endless. The inspirational stories in this updated and expanded 3rd edition of the Disney Way will challenge the original readers to examine their dream, believe, dare, do results, and they will provide new readers with a framework that will enable them to soar beyond the limits of traditional management through these 4 powerful principles. From entry-level recruits to CEOs, from private companies to public agencies, Walt Disney's principles continue to redefine the nature of business in our age and revolutionize the art of management. Chapter 1. Walt's Way. I only hope that we don't lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse. Walt Disney. When a young Midwestern artist was struggling to get his first filmmaking business off the ground in 1923, he borrowed $500 from his Uncle Robert. Uncle Robert insisted on repayment in cash rather than taking an ownership interest in the venture. That young artist, Walter Elias Disney, went on to advance the demanding art of animation to new heights and founded a company based on such sound business principles that it has survived for nearly a century and has influenced virtually every aspect of American culture. Hindsight, of course, has a well-deserved reputation for startling clarity, and we don't know if Uncle Robert lived long enough to feel a full measure of regret, but had he opted for stock in the Walt Disney Company instead of a cash repayment, the return on his $500 would have amounted to almost $1 billion from 1923 to the present. How did a boy who was born into rather modest circumstances in turn-of-the-century Chicago accomplish so much? Legend has it that Walt Disney explained his success this way: I dream, I test my dreams against my beliefs, I dare to take risks, and I execute my vision to make those dreams come true. Dream, believe, dare, do. These words reverberate across the decades of Disney achievement. Everything Walt did, every choice he made, every strategy he pursued, evolved from these four principles. And as the bedrock upon which his life and work rested, they naturally formed the basic values that dictated how he ran his company. Thus, the ways in which the Walt Disney Company trained and enabled its employees, managed creativity and innovation, and provided service to its customers were all influenced by this four-pillared credo. Why Disney? The more we learn about this legendary figure and his achievements, both as an artist and as a creative business leader, the more certain it becomes that the Disney story embodies valuable lessons for every organization. Like nearly everyone else alive today, we, the authors, grew up being almost as familiar with the Disney name as we were with our own. Many childhood hours were spent sitting on the floor before the TV set, watching the wonderful world of Disney and being transported to the Magic Kingdom. And neither of us has been able to forget the thrill of seeing Peter Pan for the first time. Bill. As a young father, introducing my own children to Peter Pan, I marveled at its ability to rekindle the emotions I initially felt watching them as a 6-year-old. Disneyland had much of the same effect when I visited for the first time over 40 years ago. Not surprisingly, as the trip was coming to an end, my then 3-year-old son didn't want to leave, and I felt a little bit that way myself. On this trip, though, I was captivated by much more than the fabulous attractions. Viewing the park through the eyes of an industrial engineer, I was thoroughly intrigued by the processes. How did Disney manage all those crowds? How did they train their employees? How did they run their customer service? What was the secret of the success of their complex technology? I came away from that first visit deeply impressed by the organization, and with a lot of questions. Lynn. As for me, the Wonderful World of Disney television show was one of the best things about being a child. But it wasn't until many years later, when I became heavily involved in the field of training and development, that I realized the true magic of Disney's philosophy. For me, the seed for benchmarking Disney was planted when I took a copy of Service America by Carl Albrecht and the late Ron Zemke with me on a trip to Florida in the mid-'80s. I knew it would help me prepare for an upcoming seminar that I was to conduct for a group of salespeople from all over the country. While reading Albrecht and Zemke's book, I realized why Walt Disney believed that every employee is the company in the mind of the customer. From that point on, my goal in training salespeople was to inspire them to begin living that mindset. Then, on my next trip to Walt Disney World, I closely observed the best of the best in action, doing just that. Years later, when we started looking around for companies that could serve as examples in our consulting business, we found ourselves coming back again and again to Disney. A great deal of scrutinizing, analyzing, and researching led us to conclude that none compared to Disney when it came to running an organization. Where one company might excel in customer relations, another might work well with its suppliers, Disney does it all. The Walt Disney Company combines consistency in direction and overall strategy, unrivaled customer service, product creativity, employee training, relatively low turnover, and impressive profitability to make it the perfect business model, at least in our eyes. Having studied the Disney phenomenon for over 4 decades, we are convinced that the management techniques we call Walt's Way are as valid today as they were in 1937, when the very first animated feature film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, captured the hearts of moviegoers. Skeptics need only look to the spectacular successes the Walt Disney Company continues to achieve year after year, decade after decade, for affirmation of Walt's Way. And if you're wondering whether the Disney magic has legs, we can answer that with a resounding yes. Over the years, we have encouraged clients in many different industries to use Walt's Dream, Believe, Dare, Do credo to improve their customer service, leadership, and innovation, while at the same time creating an atmosphere of fun. The company that Walt founded has, in effect, served as a laboratory for us, and, in turn, our clients. A legend in the making. Like many other young men of his time and place, Walt Disney held a succession of jobs punctuated by stints of formal education. In 1923, his skill as an artist and his interest in cartoons took him to California, where he and his brother Roy founded the company that was originally known as the Disney Brothers Cartoon Studio. 5 years later, they introduced the character of Mickey Mouse in the synchronized sound cartoon Steamboat Willie. The cartoon and the mouse were an instant hit. By the 1930s, this endearing little scamp had captured the hearts of audiences worldwide. Known as Michael Mouse in Germany, Miki Cucci in Japan, and Miguel Ratoncito in Spain, he even had a car named after him. When Fiat, the Italian automobile company, produced its first small car shortly after World War II, it was christened Topolino, Mickey's Italian nickname. Even though Mickey became a senior citizen a few years back, his ageless persona continues to be recognized and loved by young and old on every continent. Mickey may have led the parade, but Disney was not a one-mouse band by a long shot. No other company in the notoriously chancy entertainment business has ever achieved the stability, phenomenal growth, and multi-directional expansion of Disney. In spite of its ever-increasing reach, the Walt Disney Company has consistently kept to the central course described by its founder at the outset, to provide the finest in family entertainment. Firmly grounded in Walt's innate sense of principle and his Midwestern values, this mission has, over the years, become clearly associated with the Disney brand. Audiences expect it, and they are seldom disappointed. Whatever form the family entertainment might take, a theme park ride, a Broadway musical, an Ice Capades production, it has to be a good show in every regard. When Walt talked about delivering the good show, he didn't mean simply a glittering spectacle relying on superficial bells and whistles. He meant an entirely original, perfectly executed production with substance, created to delight a wide audience. He believed that this was what customers wanted and expected from him, and he was fanatical about providing it. What's more, the concept of a good show encompasses far more than the on-stage action in a single production. Because Walt insisted that customers be treated like guests, great customer service has become a standard feature of the total package the Walt Disney Company offers. And wrapped up in that package is a gift of creativity in product, service, and process that makes even jaded adults smile with childlike delight. Accomplishing such magic requires the talent and dedication of loyal staff as well as an army of suppliers and other partners. Extensive training, constant reinforcement of the Disney culture and its values, and recognition of the valuable contributions that employees and partners make continue to enable them to turn out one fantastic show after another as they strive to meet the exacting standards Walt established. It is this consistency of direction, obsession with customer service, commitment to people, and creative excellence that make the Walt Disney Company a standard by which others might be judged and an exemplary enterprise from which others can learn. A consummate dreamer. Walt Disney was a businessman and a lifelong dreamer who started out as a commercial artist, but it was precisely his unfettered imagination, coupled with a bent for experimentation, that propelled him to the pinnacle of success. Dreaming was the wellspring of Disney's creativity. The story is told that as a schoolboy in art class, Walt was assigned to draw flowers. In what might now be seen as a quintessential touch, and indeed the precursor to many of Disney's animated characters, young Walt embellished his work by sketching a face in the center of each flower. His teacher was less than impressed by the boy's deviation from the norm, and, lacking a magic mirror like the one the Wicked Queen had in Snow White, she failed to recognize the creative genius whose dream world would make him one of the most famous people in history. Perhaps because he himself was the greatest of dreamers, Walt encouraged both his artisans and his hundreds of other employees to unleash their imaginations too. He knew that a reservoir of creative power often languishes within a company's ranks simply because no one ever bothers to tap it. Rather than hire someone for one specific purpose and forever pigeonhole that person, which is the norm in too many companies, Walt not only welcomed ideas from all of his employees, but also actively sought to turn those ideas into reality. From dreams spring ideas, and from ideas come innovations, the lifeblood of any company. Walt Disney instinctively knew, however, that an unshakable belief in one's principles, in one's associates and employees, and in one's customers is necessary for dreams to become reality. No matter how ingenious an idea was, no matter what kind of financial interests were at stake, Walt demanded that the company adhere to his belief in and commitment to honesty, reliability, loyalty, and respect for people as individuals. Whether he was producing a cartoon or building a theme park, he refused to sell a shoddy product to his audience. When Pinocchio was released in February 1940, the New York Times hailed it as the best cartoon ever made. But Pinocchio had a difficult birth. The story of the puppet maker Geppetto and his son Pinocchio, the all-but-human puppet he created, was 6 months into production, and the team of animation artists was almost halfway through its meticulous, time-consuming drawings for the full-length feature when Walt Disney called a halt. Pinocchio was altogether too wooden, he said, and the character proposed for Jiminy Cricket made him look too much like, well, a cricket. Never mind that $500,000 had already been spent. Walt was not deterred. Previous efforts were tossed aside, and he called Ward Kimball, one of his talented young animators, into his office. Ward, who was upset because his labors on Snow White had ended up on the cutting room floor, was planning to use the occasion to resign when Walt summoned him, but the animator never had a chance. He got so excited listening to Walt talk about his dreams for the film and his ideas about Jiminy Cricket that Ward entirely forgot his own intentions of leaving. Instead, he stayed at the company and went on to create a cricket that was more human than insect, one that embodied the spirit of hope that children of all ages possess, but that sometimes needs reinforcing. The decision to halt the production of Pinocchio was made because the movie was failing to live up to one of Walt Disney's values, his insistence on excellence. At the time, Disney already had won worldwide acclaim. Walt probably could have let the film go as it was without doing any serious damage to his company or his reputation, and with substantial savings. But he recognized the difference between mediocre and excellent, and he would not compromise. That's not to say that Walt was a spendthrift. Quite the contrary, he was always acutely aware of the bottom line, but he simply refused to let it dictate every decision he made. "Why should we let a few dollars jeopardize our chances?" Walt once wrote to his brother Roy. Before it was finished, Pinocchio cost $3 million. Although high-priced for its day, this film classic long ago paid for itself in the degree of sophisticated animation, craftsmanship, and artwork it achieved. Walt Disney's strength as an imaginative and principled creative force grew from his willingness to take risks, to experiment, and to invest his resources and his time in new ventures. From the beginning, he searched for innovative ways to give his audiences the best of all possible entertainment fare. He pioneered a new art form in making Snow White, and he did it in the face of nearly unanimous ridicule. "No one will sit through a 90-minute cartoon," Walt's advisers told him. But Walt ignored the naysayers and clung tenaciously to his dream, confident that he could produce a film that would appeal to both adults and children. His willingness to challenge accepted wisdom and take a risk wound up paying handsome dividends. For example, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which was released in 1937, grossed $8 million, an astonishing amount when you consider that at the time movie tickets cost only pennies. It received a Special Academy Award, and some consider it to be one of the greatest films ever made. Snow White has also been equally popular in reissue, and it has earned itself a place in the top 50 all-time highest-grossing films. From 1930 through 1942, Walt Disney managed to transform animation from a marginal segment of the entertainment industry to a new art form. He used technical innovations to create a seamless mixture of story, color, and sound. Knowing that great visions require great but calculated risks, Walt dared to follow his instincts. Turning dreams into reality. Walt Disney's remarkable accomplishments might suggest that he had no difficulty in taking whatever action was needed to fulfill his dreams. It was not always easy, however, particularly when a lot of skeptics stood in the way, but Walt knew that dreams lie dormant unless the dreamer can do what it takes to make them come true. When his fertile mind produced an idea, he set about transforming that idea into a concrete product, service, or process. If his methods of executing his vision were sometimes unconventional or broke the accepted rules, so be it. The point was to put on the good show. For example, when Disneyland was being built in the early 1950s,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?